What a weekend it was, not just in the golf, but in the Investec Champions Cup as well. Jordan Murphy, a back-to-back Investec Champions Cup winner with the Leicester Tigers. And the obvious question is, Leicester are remarkable.
I don't see them being beaten this year.
So you think they win it from here?
I think they've won it from here. Toulouse, probably the only team that could live with them, but I think they're not the same without Dupont. Pollock is an unbelievable talent.
I'd sit down with the Leinster back row and go, right lads,
what are we going to do about
What we're going to do? First opportunity, carries the ball, bury him.
Let's not judge until he plays in big games against big players.
Bonjour, Jack Willis. Nice to see you.
The last time we'd won at the Stade Mayo was 20 years ago. That moment when Thomas put that through and everyone's leaning with the ball because it started going a bit left, it was like, come on, get through. And it's just, that's a big moment, you know, and a big game.
Have you had your Lions picture done as one of the potential 70s?
Into the final moments, Alex Payne trying to keep this side going forward. Haskell takes it on now with just relentless chat, largely about himself. And there's Tyndall to add the finishing touch of glamour and World Cup winning stories. That is how you podcast.
Hello Dream Team, welcome along to this week's episode of The Good, The Bad and The Rugby, proudly sponsored as always by our very good friends at Continental Tyres, the official tyre partner of England Rugby. Whether on the rugby field or the road, you can trust Continental Tyres for exceptional safety, performance and grip. What a weekend it was, not just in the golf, but in the Investec Champions Cup as well, and a man celebrating in both corners, I would have thought. We'll start with the golf first of all. Jordan Murphy, a back-to-back Investec Champions Cup winner with the Leicester Tigers in 2000 and 2001, a British and Irish Lion as well. We might get into a bit of that. Hask is a Investec Champions Cup winner as well.
Hi, welcome back. I'm Jace Haskell. I've been steering the ship last couple of weeks. You all right?
I think you've done one afternoon.
No, I've done
I
three,
was
actually.
available.
Three.
Do we want to start with the squabble or should we start with Rory?
Let's not start the squabble. Just was good to see you back. You okay?
Yeah, I'm all right, thank you.
Triathlon Cash tuned in on TV. You were live on Bahrain.
I was live in Bahrain, yes.
Yeah. Feathering the nest, the personal nest.
Someone's got to. There's not a lot
Tyndall's not here again. Does not give a shit about his business. Doesn't care.
Can we start just quickly with Rory McIlroy, because we record this on Monday morning off the back of one of the great sporting moments I think I can remember in the last X number of years. How much how much did you dial into it, and B, just a sense of the pride?
Yeah, I watched it last night, a late one. And I think you could just sense the nerves. I was nervous sitting on the sofa watching it. You know, there was a couple of occasions where I sort of screamed at the TV. My wife was going, "What does that mean? What does that mean? He's dropped 2 shots." It was unbelievable. Great viewing. Sort of to and fro, and kind of, I thought he'd thrown it away. He missed that putt.
He did as well.
Yeah, well, I did. You know, when he walked up after 18, kissed his wife and his daughter, I just thought that's that one where, you know, you kind of going, your wife's going, yeah. And Rose had been so good, and sort of obviously that last round by him was amazing. So sort of going down that playoff hole, I thought, whoosh. But wow, you know, some of those orange shots he hit were amazing, and incredibly proud of him. You know, I think, you know, you're looking at the guys, the Grand Slammers who've done that in golf. You know, they did it their first or their third attempt. Took Rory 14 times to go back out there, and he's had some haunting episodes as well where he's looked good and the wheels have fallen off. So to mentally put himself together a few times, that's great sport.
Yeah. And obviously he's a massive rugby fan as well. I wonder if he'll do a little tour of the Kingspan in his new green jacket. But it just just great to see one of the great guys.
You know, there's a great story about Rory. Like, I obviously admire Rory McIlroy. I think he's fantastic. He's obviously a legend of the game. I remember there was a time we played Ireland. We'd lost, and we lost. I went into this. Went into this nightclub in Dublin, Crystals, and I remember I got shown round his table, and this bloke was like, "Hey, fuck you, unlucky England, like England shit, Haskell, yay!" And I turned around and went, "Oi, fuck off, pubed, or I'll burn that shit lid off," right? Like, didn't really pay any attention to him. Walked off, and the bloke it's a bit stunned. And I was getting bombarded. Obviously, it was like, I think it was a Grand Slam decider game where the highlight was Steve Thompson scored a try for us. That was, you know, it was rock bottom. We got pumped. And so none of us were in the best frame of mind. And I think I'd had a row with my ex-bird at the time. It was a nightmare day. He picked the wrong time to shout in my face and everything else. So anyway, thought nothing more about it, carried on. And then our lads went, "Oh, Rory McIlroy's in the club." I was like, "Oh, sick. I love Rory McIlroy." Led me back to the table. Turns out it was pubed. Yeah. And I was like, fuck that up. And see, when he was younger, he had that little curly little fro thing. So I'm not sure he's my biggest fan, but I'm one of his fans.
My Instagram is packed with photos today of people who have met or played with Tiger Woods, with Rory McIlroy over the years, and there's sort of pictures of their elbow in shot, etc. It's so Hask to come in with a story about calling him pube head and wanting to burn his hair off. I mean, there can be no greater tribute.
No, I think
to
that's
the new
where
Masters
he
champion.
built his mental resilience.
Exactly.
For him to come back that night on that nightclub and
to
sort
be
of put
fair,
himself
he
together.
was probably a couple of months having won his last major at that point. It's taking him 4 years to get over the 19 crystals.
It was,
Another great story about him, Ian Humphreys, who played for Leicester for a short while, David's younger brother, used to kick at Ravenhill, and at Ravenhill there was kind of the old, if you can remember, sort of a little track around it, and there was speed bumps, and Ian was practicing his kicking, and Rory rang him one day, said, "Do you mind if I come? I'm at a loose end. Could I just kick the balls back for you?" So he said, "Yeah, no problem." And Ian pulled up in his sort of battered Fiat Punto and was kicking the goals, and the next thing Rory turned up in his Ferrari, and he decided to take his Ferrari around the back of the pitch, not realising that the speed bumps were awful, and Ian Humphreys was just giggling as he ripped the front bumpers off his Ferrari, but no problem, jumped out and kicked the balls back for an hour or so, and then just sort of carried on. So
just call up Ferrari and get to take that piece of shit away at the bottom of it.
Well done, Rory McIlroy. What incredible sport that was. Now, before we get underway on today's show, if you don't already, please do like, subscribe, drop a comment underneath the video. Leave all feedback as you see fit. We always love to read that. We're also going to be talking a little bit later on to a man who won the Investec Champions Cup last year and at the moment looks on course to win it again this year. That, of course, is Jack Willis. But we're going to start with events in Dublin, first of all. And that is where Leinster stormed to victory over Glasgow on Friday night. So
ominous.
Well, and the obvious question is Leicester are remarkable. They have now not conceded a point to either Quins or Glasgow, and they are odds-on favourite to make it back to another final. The underwriting to that is in a quarter-final to beat your opponent 52-0, I think probably puts one or two question marks over the format and the strength of Leinster relative to others. But let's start with the good first of all. Pretty damn impressive.
Just hugely, hugely impressive. I think when you win the previous week, 62-0, and you sort of go on a 6-day turnaround against a side like Glasgow, who've scored the most tries in sort of their domestic competitions, both competitions so far. They've got huge attacking threats, are a serious side. I didn't think that they'd go and put 52 points on them. And actually, to be quite honest, I think they probably took their foot off the gas at about 55, 60 minutes. They replaced Sam Prendergast, brought on Ross Byrne, and just kind of shifted down a gear. And Leinster have that ability. I've watched them play. They start at a huge intensity. They score first in so many games. They bring this huge intensity to the top end of games. And if you can stay in it, then it's a game. But if you don't stay in with it early, you're just in so much trouble. And that game was done and dusted at half time.
Yeah.
But they've just got that unbelievable ability. Some team, Danny Kerr talked about them being better than Ireland. And with some of the guys that they've signed in, there's a huge argument for that.
I mean, you talk about some of the players who've signed in, only Jordie Barrett and only RG Snyman, which sort of feels like cheat mode if you're playing PlayStation, really. I mean, I'm not sure who else you'd want to add to that, just to
Jordie Barrett's effect on the game is just amazing.
It sort of looks a bit man against boys at times, particularly
because he's such a big unit as well, but just the way he threaded into attack, his kicking, his clearance, his dynamism, his offload, his dummy and his playing, it's remarkable. The amount, if you look at the bits and pieces that he had within that game, and the impact he had, and how many little moments he played a role in, you'd be gutted that he's got to go back to New Zealand, wouldn't you? Because you'd pay him any amount of money to stay because he's remarkable.
He is remarkable. The whole family are remarkable. Unbelievable rugby players. Both brothers, captains of New Zealand. When they said he was going to come, I just thought, wow, that is a hell of a coup. He would have been offered ridiculous money in Japan to go on that sabbatical, and I'm sure they've had to pay handsomely for him. I don't know the figures, but I know Leinster, without a shadow of a doubt, are probably, for me, one of the best rugby teams in the world. Club sides, provincial sides, whatever way you call it, they are the best, hands down. Now, obviously there'll be a huge attraction for him to go to Leinster because he wants to be there. He wants to sort of be playing in European finals. I'm sure he'd love to have that medal. But they did an unbelievable job in getting him. He was exceptional, just exceptional. Man of the match, but did it in sort of such a stylish way. For me, one of the biggest things, he did everything on attack. He was brilliant on attack, but sort of 15, 16, maybe 18 minutes into the game, Rowe's gone down the left wing with the ball, and he's just basically gassed, handed off Sam Prendergast, so he's confident. He's thinking, here I go, I'm going to score. And if he scores, it's 7-0. He chips the ball over the top. But just the way Barrett was, his speed, he's a big unit. He's physical. We saw him, smashing the 8. We saw him carrying Hastings into touch, making huge tackles and getting over the ball, stealing the ball. But in that moment, he didn't commit. And he's quick enough just to diffuse the situation where he goes back, and then confident enough to just pick the ball up over the try line, step the full back, and go back and put in a 100-metre kick down that nearly finishes on the other goal line. So you're just thinking he is just in a cheat mode.
Interestingly, I mean, obviously, we'll talk a bit about the Northampton game, but we are now into the Final Four. And I suppose the one chink in Leinster's armoury over the last 3 or 4 years has been the ability to seal the deal. Do you see in Barrett and Snyman the answers to the questions that they have had at the very, very sharpest end of this tournament?
Yeah, I think so. I don't see them being beaten this year.
So you think they win it from here?
I think they've won it from here. Give it to them now, and that's maybe being a little bit short-sighted in that they've got a huge game against Northampton, who will be confident from their last outing in there. But I just think Northampton, without the firepower they have with RG Snyman and Barrett, they've just added another level of physicality, which is kind of I think where Northampton have probably dropped off a bit. So I think they'll win that semi-final, and then you're going to a final in Cardiff against Toulouse or Bordeaux, and I just think they just look unstoppable this year.
Just a question on Prendergast and Van der Vliet, because Lions mania is everywhere and everyone's talking about risers and fallers. I think probably most people post Six Nations said, well, Van der Vliet's got work to do, Prendergast likewise. Are they doing that?
Yeah, I think so. I think, Six Nations was probably disappointing for some of Irish hopes. I think that was kind of a step back. But now you're into kind of the last few weeks of trials. I think that the Lions coaches will be there watching all of these games, and you have to put your very, very best foot forward in these games. I think Prendergast is a class act. I think he, with Barrett there, takes a lot of pressure off him. That set piece line out try is going 9-12, and he's just sitting at the back of that. But you look at all of Leinster's plays, you look at all of their crisp, 3-man pods to a connection. It's all crisp, it's all sharp. Tommy O'Brien's try was ridiculous on that 3-man pod. Hugo Keenan hits the ball at the line and then throws a 20-metre pass off his left hand at pace with about to get hit. It's just, the skill set is on a dry day in Leinster. I just don't see many teams having the same skill set. Toulouse probably the only team that could live with them, but I think they're not the same without Dupont.
Ringrose as well. That solo try again. It's weird because obviously when we played Gary Ringrose lots of times. He was obviously always talked about his Brian O'Driscoll's sort of replacement, and that's very difficult to replace Brian O'Driscoll. You got to don't necessarily they're like for like, got to replace him. Again, I was just really impressed with him this season. He just looks really confident. It looks like he's he looked great. That power, hit that line, hit back, bounce through and score.
Ringrose is a class act. I felt sorry for him in the Six Nations, obviously, because he had that ban. He missed a couple of games. I'm a huge fan of his. I always have been, and I felt it was really unlucky. He was really unlucky in the Six Nations to get a ban, and I think he needed a big game because kind of his stock had fallen a little bit. Hugh Jones had such a fantastic couple of years that everyone's going, well, he's going to be a shoe in for that 13 spot. Whereas I would have thought sort of not long ago it would have been Ringrose, and he's kind of put a cat amongst the pigeons with that sort of performance because consistently he's good and defensively he's very good.
As a man as a coach's hat as well, what about the impact of Nienaber? What have you seen in what he has brought?
Well, I think he's kind of brought that next level. Obviously, huge experience, and he'll be hugely respected on the back of sort of the World Cup wins. But that defence, very, very impressive.
Yeah.
To go 62 and 52 in 2 weeks on a 6-day turnaround at the knockout stages is massive, and I think that's what Northampton are going to have to sort of try and crack this week or say in a couple of weeks' time in the semi. It's going to be difficult to score points, and they need to sort of pray for rain, in my opinion.
Interestingly, Leinster have popped out a post saying Cardiff is calling all rugby fans. The excitement's already buzzing in one of the great rugby capitals. Book your tickets early for this great weekend to get the best seats at the best price, which I'm sure is putting it down simply to a rising tide floats all boats, and let's all sell tickets for everybody.
But also slightly raterish, just putting it out there.
Well, move fast.
I'm just saying.
But interestingly, and on that note, tickets are actually, I'm told, selling very fast for the Investec Champions Cup final weekend in Cardiff, 23rd and 24th of May. If you want to be in it
what
to
stadium
win it,
to play the final?
epcr.com for more details. One of the greats.
Yeah.
And it always throws up great European finals as well. One of the things I would ask, though, is having won, 114-0 in the quarters, in the round of 16 and the quarters, is there a danger that the meat is slightly undercooked coming into a semi-final against a Northampton team who have got all their chips in this basket, to mix your metaphors?
Yeah, look, Jordie Barrett post-game, he said that there is a risk of complacency. And that's what Leo Cullen had talked about on the week of the game. He was sort of saying, we can do it once, but we have to back it up and we have to care and we have to be passionate about it. I was hugely impressed by Barrett's interview because it wasn't, we've done these amazing things, we're going to go and win it. It was, very much next job, next task. Yeah. I don't expect them to be arrogant. I think Saints will come in, they'll throw some punches and they'll need to throw some punches, but I don't think they'll be able to live with the level of physicality that Leinster can bring.
51-16, the Saints have beaten Castres. A word on the performance of your old team.
I just thought Northampton and those starter plays and their attacking plays off line outs and off set piece, they look really good. And I think that link between Tommy Freeman, for a big unit, for him to go stop and stutter step and go around the wing, and then nice to Furbank inside. And actually Furbank I thought did really well coming on, because there's no way for one of your first games back you want to be coming on in the first half. You want to be eased in 20-30 minutes off the bench, but to come in and to play the majority of the game. And actually he got stuck in. I think he put a great cover tackle in, I think, when his arm was already sort of falling off again. I just thought they looked really, when they're going forward, they look really, really impressive. And you can see why England like the way that they attack. Pollock again getting headlines. I think I'm a big fan of people playing with character. I loved it. His first carry, kick return, went round the outside of a centre, boom, linked up with Hendy, went through. I thought it was really impressive. I wasn't sure about the basketball celebration, because when you're pumping a team, it's tricky. I think if you won't win by a close margin, by all means, but sort of, doing the old basketball celebration when you've already dicked them is probably setting yourself up for a little bit of an interesting one when Leinster come, because that's the first person I'd sit down with the Leinster back row and go, right, lads, I'm not being funny, but this kid is absolutely carving up. Look at this.
What are we going to do about it?
What we're going to do? But that's how you do it. That's if you're going.
What is the answer to the question? First
opportunity, carry the ball, fucking bury him, is what I would say. Or is because what we normally do with, not saying I want to, but I think he's great, Pollock. This is not about me. I'm just talking about when we prepared for big games. At the moment, Pollock is what you'd say a talisman for Northampton at the moment. He's playing well. He's looking good. He's accelerating. He's full of confidence. So he's got a big ring round him earmarked. Right, who's going to deal with him? Then you look at Finn Smith, who's going to deal with that? Alex Mitchell, who's he going to deal with that? And Tommy Freeman, who's going to deal with that? And those are the four guys you'd pick out and go, right, let's address those guys, because each one's part of your spine of your team. So Alex Mitchell, there's no way that is running three dummies, pops the ball to Pollock. As soon as he runs across the field, someone's got to fold him up. Rule number one. Finn Smith's got to feel pressure on him all afternoon. Pollock, every time he gets the ball, you'd want the lights to go on and go, right, lads, and you'd be shouting his name. But the beauty of it is, someone like Pollock, I think, will relish that. And if you do then get that extra sort of competition dynamism, and he bumps one of them, suddenly you're in the game. If he goes through the first carry and someone cuts him in half, maybe it'll be a tougher afternoon. So I think there's some real excitement, but I think Northampton are in a really good place. I know Jordie said that the Premiership's been pretty, not ideal for them, but they seem to have a bit of taste for Europe. I think they're a great side. I think there's players playing well. When they're together and going well, they look like that England vibe. The spine's there. They're having a great time. And I love Pollock. I just think everything he touches is turning to gold. And what a player. What a player. What a guy. I'm just telling you now, psychologically, you've always got to remember what you don't think is something, he's just always giving. I mean, I gave people loads of things. It was very famous. We played Australia. And Ben Morgan said something about Australians before that World Cup that, hope that Australians have nightmares about the scrum and all this kind of stuff. And Michael Cheika walked up to me at kickoff on the field before the warm up when I was on the bench. He goes, "Hess, mate, you fucking Ben Morgan, mate. He's just written my pre-match, mate. He's fucking giving night."
Eddie Jones, all of a
It was,
sudden.
yeah. It does.
Yeah.
It's very similar. It's quite a nuance. You probably haven't got the ear for it. They sound similar, but quite different. You're uncultured like that. It's different parts of Australia. But and he was like that, and I said, "Didn't know what you meant." So I went back and sat next to one of the lads in the stand and said, "What's happened here?" And they went, "Oh, look for it," Googled it. Morgan's obviously said he hoped the Australians are going to have nightmares. All they did was talk about that. So all game they were getting into Ben Morgan about nightmare. The scrum went really well for Australia. They attacked off that scrum and scored when they did the reverse.
Bernard
Foley went the old play. So you've got to be very careful.
I think that's the case. I think what we've seen of Pollock is his breakthrough season. He's got pace and runs a great line, and he's obviously one of those talismanic players. What Leinster will be trying to do in that semi-final is, as Hask said, you're trying to just look for that little bit of doubt in his eyes and that little bit of a crack where he, when he does run into a brick wall and he gets absolutely smashed, or when he drops the ball, that's the opportunity of somebody to walk past and go, oh, you're not so confident now. Where are you now? And start to just create that little bit of doubt in your head.
Why that just feeds the beast.
That's what I mean. But it can
I'm
do.
not sure that, like,
It can do. It can go one of two ways. But, if you keep running into brick walls and you drop the ball once and you drop the ball twice, and then all of a sudden you've got Van der Fleer going, mate, this is a man's game, not a boy's game. You're not running it. And you're kind of going, oh God, maybe I'm right. I've had nothing. And they're going, mate, you shouldn't even be on this field. You're not good enough to be on this field. You should be cleaning my boots. And then all of a sudden, and you can see it. And look, for him, that's his thing. He's got this image that, he's this super positive character, and that's great. That, for people who sort of are fond of the dark arts, that's just a sign for let's go after him if you can.
But also, you look at the converse flip of that is you look at Leinster and you go, right, who do we pick out? Jordie Barrett straight away, Snyman straight away, and obviously Jamison Gibson Park, because he is on fire. And again, if you could pick those guys out and go from a defensive session, so I'm always interested with so for both those sides, the non-23 will be the most important people this week. And we saw it with England when they played very well in towards the end of Six Nations. They talked about how good Pollock was as opposition. When you're preparing for these teams, you've got to go, right, whose afternoon can we make most difficult? Because it's very difficult. It's a bit like putting your finger in the dike, to stop one flow, another one pops up. Jamison Park, he is the heartbeat of that side, to be able to control the play. Jordie Barrett, when he runs, you've got to respect him. Snyman, you two-man tackles on him every time, and you can see the way the narrative will be built for the week to go, this is how we look after it.
So I want to talk about the game, but it is fascinating that you start talking Northampton and you just end up talking Pollock at the moment. And the reason I sort of want to expand on him in the moment in time is that I think, in a funny kind of way, he is almost, what is the right expression? He's put the fun back into English rugby, and there's a massive thing to say on the shoulders of a kid who's 20 and has had 15 minutes off the bench in Cardiff, but he scores twice on debut. You turn up on Saturday night at Franklin's Gardens, and there are kids with headbands dressed as Henry Pollock. Harry Payne, age 12, will tell you that at World Book Day, some kids went into school dressed as Henry Pollock.
He went as James Haskell, didn't he?
He did not go as James Haskell, thank God.
How did he manage that?
But my point is, I cannot remember a kid in English rugby in particular, and English rugby, and I'm isolating it from the world game right now, it's had some seriously shit years recently. It's had clubs going bust. It's had poor performances at international level. It's had all sorts of challenges around tackle heights and concussion, etc. You have got a guy here who is just living the dream. And you're absolutely right. There is going to be a point at which it is boy into man, etc. But the thing I thought was really interesting about Pollock in particular is that not only is he playing with a massive smile on his face, but he turns up and goes in studio afterwards and he speaks really well. And as a result of that, Finn Smith goes in and speaks really well. And Tommy Freeman is now doing lawnmower celebrations. And it just feels like, again, this is a huge thing to put on the shoulders of a young kid who is just making his way. He's just changed the energy around Northampton and England and the people who are playing with him.
I think I think you already see it. So sports people, particularly in this country, and so unlike America, because America is its own force, New Zealand, again, they would never tolerate it. Is in this country, we love a story like that, but we want our sports people to fit in nice, comfortable boxes that make us feel comfortable. So we want them to be sort of have personality, but not too much personality. We want them to be humble, but we want them to be good. We don't want them to say too much. So already you can see, and I saw it from looking at some of the highlights and some of the comments underneath, it's already rattling the very boring, very staid, very stoic rugby fans. It's already rattling them. He is brilliant for this game because rugby for so long has had a level of comfort and mediocrity where everyone fits under a nice band. And every now and then you have people that put their head above the parapet, but very rarely does the talent match the chap. Floyd Mayweather, Conor McGregor for part of his career, Michael Jordan. There's again he did, but you have that razzmatazz. I'm not comparing them to Pollock to that, but the principle about being able to speak, be confident, rate yourself, and back it up. It will unnerve people. And in a sport that traditionally hates anyone being above the team, it will be an interesting journey. I love it. The Tommy Freeman thing, even the commentators were joking about the lawnmower thing. Who gives a shit? There'll be kids trying it on the weekend. it's a show business game, and it's an entertainment
Well, it is
game.
now,
It is
but
now.
it traditionally wasn't.
It wasn't, but it's still people are still trying not to,
I think Saints embrace that. I think they have done for a few seasons. They've been the guys who attack. Sam Vesty's attack is amazing.
Yeah.
Finn Smith, Mitchell, Freeman, Ram. Like some of the tries that they've scored. They try things. They attack from deep. They go. They should enjoy it. They should celebrate. Like I disagree about Pollock. I don't want to keep talking about him because for him, he's gone into that game going, if I score a try, I'm going to do this, and it doesn't matter if you've won by 60 or if you've won by 3. He's celebrating and he's expressing himself. So I'm a huge fan of that. I love to see them scoring those tries. The Freeman try where he did the lawnmower, class. That's people enjoying themselves.
Yeah.
I think what sometimes English and British and Irish sport does is we celebrate people too early.
Yeah.
So Pollock is an unbelievable talent. Yeah, he's class. He runs great lines. He's fast. I've seen him play last season in the 20s. He can score a try from the length of the field. Where you earn your stripes is in semi-finals against Leinster.
Very good.
So let's not judge until he plays in big games against big players, because it's all well and good scoring a couple of tries against Cast when you're winning by 50 and you run a fantastic line, and that's great, and that's what the kids want to see. But let's not celebrate it too soon.
See that little Leicester change, kid getting too big and just go, George, can I just have a word? Can I have a word? Listen, pal.
Wind your neck in.
Wind your neck in. So, Will Green, the prop, used to walk past, go, Haskell, let's talk more action. And just walk off and go, I think we've heard quite enough from you. Get on with it. And just, he wouldn't ever say anything else to me. It was amazing. It was just these little one-liners.
Yeah, but the big thing about that game, Leinster-Northampton, it feels like a final Lions trial.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got Van der Fleer there, and no one's talked about him. I know we're going to speak to Jack Willis later on in the show, and they're two world-class sevens. Jack Morgan, who's probably the Welsh best player Wales had in the Six Nations, and Tommy Raffel underneath that. You've got two Curry boys. You've got some unbelievable back rowers there, and we're going, Pollock could be a bolter for the Lions. Let's see where you get to when you're playing in the big games.
Yeah. So if you are clever, therefore, and you're Phil Dowson, do you start Tom Pearson?
Well, you know what? Tom Pearson, I think, is a cracking player.
Yeah.
I think he's an absolute... He's a different element of physicality. And I think, yes, you do. For me...
So you'd have Pollock on the bench?
I'd have Pollock on the bench, and I'd start Pearson. I think Pearson gives you that element of... He's a tough carrier. He's probably defensively what you need. It's all good and good having Pollock come off the bench. Look, Leicester, when they went to Northampton a few weeks back and probably expecting it to be quite a close game, Pollock was on the bench. And they wanted to have that competitive thing. He comes off the bench very early in the second half, and he was unlucky not to score, makes some great line breaks and does some great things. But right at the top end of that game, he wasn't chosen to sort of engage in that sort of that battle. So yeah, I think he's class. I love he's got a character. I love everything about him. But I just don't think we need to beat the drum just yet. Let's play some big games before we haven't been picked for the Lions.
You mean be sensible and rational? No way. Just go absolute full hyperbole until we burn him out.
Let's make him president. Let's make him president.
Two people I want to ask you about in particular. Tommy Freeman.
Class.
Was he at Leicester with you?
No, he wasn't. He
wasn't.
So this is a common misconception. He had played, and I had to actually find this out because I was at Leicester at the time when he was there. He had been in sort of a DPP program under 14, 15 level. They had watched him play 10.
Oh, really?
They'd watched him play 10, and they didn't choose to select him to go into an academy.
Okay.
So I'm sure the story is that he was rejected or he was in the academy and he was let go. That wasn't the case,
right,
as far as I'm aware. Now, 17-18 was a particularly sort of turbulent time. Cockrell going, Major going. So there was 3 coaches in the space of kind of a year. So there was a lot of turbulence at the top end of the club, but as far as I'm aware, he was never in the academy, but had sort of been watched by sort of the DPP as 14, 15s. But it's a great story, and like every club I've ever been to, every junior club in the world, people always going, do you have to be the best at 13? And one of my stories is, I didn't start playing till I was 13. I didn't sort of break into a first team until I was 16, 17. So it wasn't like you're ever going to be able to be the very, very best at 14 or 15. You just later developers, but he's a class act.
Yeah.
Just
still waiting to develop.
Yes. Well,
we're all waiting for that.
In the gym,
13 wing.
Freeman?
Yeah.
Look, I think
doesn't matter.
It doesn't really matter. For me, on the wing, he just looks so comfortable. The way he's saying sweep and the way he kind of just goes from the blind side, picks up in those kind of 10 shoulder balls. He's so strong. He's got electric with his footwork. Seeing him on the wing, the try he scored was class.
Yeah.
He's got the strength just to skip, stutter step, go speed to the outside, keep the ball alive, and then just keep himself on his feet, and sort of great by Furbank as well, sort of great offload. But that's what they do, and I think that's when you sort of talk to Sam Vesty, he wants them to play for space, and just try things, and it's his positive sort of mindset is certainly seen in the way they play.
And the other person I want to ask you about, you've just mentioned, is Sam Vesty. From what you knew of him, I mean, he would have been, did he come in? He must have been 18, 19, 20 when you first would have come across him.
Sam would have come through the academy at Leicester, so I would have been sort of involved with and played with Sam for a good few years.
For sure.
But great guy.
From where he has come from to the coach that he is becoming, would you put that down to?
I think Sam was always going to be a great coach.
Yeah.
He kept me out of the side, got me back put onto the wing because he played fullback on occasions when Pat Howard was there second time, so probably 06, 07. I had to play some games on the wing, and I used to, do my head. I was like, oh, they playing on the wing, and why am I not playing fullback? And we'd have these great conversations and great rugby conversations, myself, Pat Howard, and Sam Vesty. And
doesn't sound like a great conversation. It sounds like you moaning and bollocking everyone. And
no, but one of the great things Pat Howard would do is if he was going to drop you or move you to the wing, he'd have the conversation with the other person.
Oh,
there.
really?
Oh, yeah. So it wasn't a case of he'd have a conversation in a silo and say, oh, Jordan, you're doing this, or Hask, you're doing this, or Sam. You'd get together and you'd sit down and he'd go, Jordan, you're going to play on the wing this week, and I'd go, I don't want to play on the wing this weekend, and he's going, well, Vesty's too slow to play on the wing. He's got cement in his boots, but he can play rugby, and he's got a great brain. And I'd go to Vesty and I'd go, look, mate, I'll play on the wing with you, but I want to be playing fullback, and we'd work it out.
Oh, really?
And have these great conversations, which is a great way to do things from a coaching point of view. But Sam's rugby brain was amazing, and he played European final in 2009. He played 10. We lost Derek Hogarth, Toby Flood. Sam played 10 in that game, and he was always he was consistent in the side. He could play 10. He could play 12. He could play 15. He's probably he was. To be critical, he was absolutely no pace. He had, cement boots. He was wearing the Gilbert classics.
Gilbert
ankle boots. So just as a rugby player, he got it.
Yeah.
Some really great days out with Sam, goal kicking and the things he did, but his knowledge of the game was always good. So he was always going to be great. Watching him coach Worcester, again, what they did with the backline and their strike plays, innovative. He was always hungry. I know he's regularly in contact with some of the guys in the Southern Hemisphere, Paddy Howard, Darryl Gibson, regularly on Zoom with them. So he's hungry to learn. He's a really gregarious character, and that he's smiley, he's happy, but he's got a really great rugby brain underneath that. And I think he's the reason that Saints are playing so well.
You've already said, and we've got it etched in stone, that Leinster win it. But how dangerous is this Northampton outfit, particularly now that the Premiership has gone for them?
They'll go to Dublin. They will have nothing to lose. That'll be Northampton's mindset is, look, we've been here before. We were within one score when we just stayed in it. We stayed in it. Everyone expects Leinster to win. No one expects anything of us. If we're solid defensively, if we can start with a huge intensity and just hang in there, we will score tries. And, we have to play their game, be creative, play with smiles on their face. You want to see Finn Smith with a smile on his face, Freeman with a smile on his face, Mitchell, getting out and creating opportunities later in the game. They'll want to do that. They'll have to, really physically front up very early in the game in that first 20-minute block. You can't let Leinster score 10 points, which they'll be looking to do, and they'll be up for it, and they have a chance on the back of that. I don't mean to be disrespectful to Northampton by saying I fully expect Leinster to win. I think 95 times out of 100 Leinster win that game. There are obviously outlying occasions that Northampton can win it on. I think what Leinster have is just that physicality up front. You've got, we're talking about Snyman being such a fantastic ball carrier. You've got McCarthy beside him. You've got a back row that, you've got Caelan Doris on the bench. You've got Conan. You've got Deegan. You've Ander Fleer. You've got Sheehan. People. One of the guys who hasn't been talked about at all at the moment is Ronan Kelleher. Ronan Kelleher started on the weekend. For me, he's the second best Lions hooker for this summer. So Sheehan and Kelleher should go on that Lions tour for me. But that won't happen because that's that's going to be a complete cat amongst the pigeons. But those two guys as hookers are just unbelievable. Throw in Porter, Furlong back fit. That pack is just it's ridiculous. And getting gain line, and then if they don't get gain line, you've got Barrett, Ringrose, Lowe, who can all win, and O'Brien, who can all get gain line in the back. So it's just a big physical, skillful side.
You've definitely justified your call. I just think it's interesting that this Northampton side, the point you make about them not having anything to lose is a really interesting one. Quick word on Bordeaux Munster. You took a lot of heat last week for not mentioning Craig Casey and Jack Crowley in the Lions context.
Yes.
Do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, again, heat's probably too strong a word. I would have gone to bed and woken up and not noticed anything had changed in any context. But I imagine people got very heated on our GB&R social media, where they're not massive fans of me anyway, and in the Facebook group. But I was absolutely proven right. Lucu and France's fourth choice fly half Jalibert outplayed them, getting destroyed 47 points to 29 is
Well, it was quite close until the final minute. I mean, it was in nip and tuck.
Well, I think I just don't think. I think it turns out I do know what I'm talking about. And let's just remember Bordeaux. I mean, we're going to talk to Jack against Toulouse. They're the team to beat at the moment. They look pretty unstoppable, to be honest with you.
Hard on Munster, or at times only themselves to blame. How do you cut the cake on Munster?
You can't lose 9 lineouts and expect to win that game. It's too important. As Hask said, that's direct correlations to points on the board. You win those, you're getting strikes, you're getting opportunities to win penalties, to put yourself into the 22, to give yourself chances to score. It becomes really disheartening. When you've lost 3 in a row, 4 in a row, you're looking at Jack Crowley and he's going, you're calling back moves, you're calling patterns of play, and you're going, right, go same one again. Well, you've called that 3 times in a row. Yeah, but we haven't had the ball 3 times in a row. So it's frustrating.
It's worrying when you're setting up defensively from an attacking line out.
Yeah. It's awkward when the opposition start calling moves off your line out. And that is, it's pretty, as a back, that's kind of frustrating. You're kind of going, lads, can you sort this out, please? I've no idea what's going on with these triple movements, but even if you need to go to a 2-man line out, just give us the ball, please. And I think that's, from hearing the coaching chat afterwards, it's like, the guys have to solve the problems on the field. Yes, that's something that everyone aspires to do, but I think you need to sort of be able to assist that and sort of solve the problem for the players on occasion, or give them some guidance on how that can be solved. I think Crowley and Casey, they're cracking players. Cracking players, and I feel sorry for Jack Crowley a little bit, because there was a case for the Six Nations if he had been first choice, and it was genuinely a 50-50 at the top end of that Six Nations, and they went with Prendergast. But then you're in Lions selection, and your name's in the hat, and as Prendergast is now, the fact that he didn't get that start, and that's probably an argument for a whole show, hours and hours of chat, means that he's probably just dropped down the pecking order at one level. But they're still class players. And still have an opportunity to go as outsiders, realistically.
The sliding doors moment that is the Lions season. Just on Bordeaux, though, first ever Investec Champions Cup semi-final. How dangerous a contender are they?
I think they could be finalists.
Really?
Yeah, I think they could beat Toulouse.
They won't fear Toulouse in a funny
They won't
kind of
fear
way.
Toulouse. I know they've beaten Toulouse earlier in the season. I think they've been trucking along quite nicely with some of the guys from the back line they have. I love Payno on the wing. Is again, like Freeman, just a class act. You can score a try from anything. Doesn't look like he's moving, but he's absolutely rapid and big unit as well. Biela Barry on the other wing. They can score tries from anything in the backs, and they've got a pretty competitive pack. The way they sort of pushed Munster over a couple of times. They're a big physical pack with a good back line at home against Toulouse, who are probably, I would say, just a little bit off without Caputo, without Dupont. I think it'll be very difficult for Toulouse to go on and win it. I think Bordeaux, Leinster would be the final.
Lucu looks great as well.
He does look class.
It's interesting because
Dupont drops out and Lucu comes in.
And he looked, from what I saw in the game, he looked just he steered the game. He even got stuck in a couple of mauls. When nothing better than your 9 getting caught up and unable to play the ball as a load of meatheads pile over the top of him. He looked dynamic. He defended well. It was everything that's good about that side. And it's good when the 9's kind of leading the side and pulling the strings. And they just looked in control. I mean, look, Munster are a great side, and I think it's sad. We wanted to get Peter Amani on if they'd won, and we love a kind of a story of they've gone on and got to the final, they've beaten Toulouse and got into played Leinster or whatever it would have been. It's just a shame that it ended like that. But you can't really have much to argue about when the players got to that level, and the dynamism and speed and aggression and the size of the carriers.
I think Lucu's a cracking player. I think sitting behind Dupont, you're going, who's this guy? He comes on after 20 minutes against Ireland, and everyone's rubbing their hands, going, this guy, we don't even know who he is. And all of a sudden we're going, wow, okay, Galtier hasn't really got it wrong. People are saying he's not even as good as Legaric, the Racing 9.
Baptiste Saran at Toulon.
Baptiste Saran, he's the 4th best 9, and then all of a sudden he's absolutely ripping it up. Next minute he's ripping it up, and they're down to 13 men, 78th minute, and Munster sort of hanging in there. It's he's tracking behind the line, great tackle someone into touch, just diffuses the game. So he was particularly impressive.
We're going to take a quick break and talk to you about Tilda Rice. It's proper quality stuff. A real lifesaver when you're constantly on the go. Not only do they have a wide range of microwave pouches,
which are tasty, Hask, they're convenient too, and they're ready in just 2 minutes.
But their boil in the bag range means you can nail perfect portions with zero effort.
I'm sold, Hask. I always end up cooking far too much of the stuff.
Don't you have staff to do it for you?
I wish I did, Hask. 35% of people struggle to cook rice in life, and I'm one of them.
All right, pop quiz. Do you know how many grains Tilda mills a day in their UK facility?
I've thought about this, Hask, and I've not managed to work it out. Is it 10 million, a million, 5 million, 4
Try
million?
16 billion.
Blimey, no wonder they're the experts.
They work closely with farmers to source the best quality grains, and they're also the first rice brand to be B Corp certified, which means that they meet high standards of social and environmental impact.
Tell you something, Hask, you are a changed man in your 40s. It's great to see you so caring about social and environmental matters.
Well, I'm learning from the best in Tilda, so if you want to elevate your plate, choose Tilda rice.
Right, let's turn it on to the final of the games that we haven't covered thus far, and that, of course, is Toulouse 21, Toulon 18. It was an absolute humdinger, as so often these all-French affairs. Oh, and we're going to bring in a friend of the show once again and say, bonjour, how are you? Jack Willis, nice to see you. You all right?
Yeah, good. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, it's great to have you back on once again. I can see the big printer in the background. I presume that's just continually printing out contracts, is it, as you extend further and further with more and more zeros? Where are you at the moment? It looks slightly sort of home office-esque.
Yeah, and I've got a little home office. I've always kept my bits and bobs going outside of rugby. It doesn't last forever, so always tried to be entrepreneurial. I learned from Big Hask here. That was always something. I'm not into DJing though, so don't worry about that. That's not the route I'm going down.
I was actually going to ask you for a job because things haven't been going that well.
Yeah, might be going a lot worse.
Do you need a PA? Is that over your left shoulder? Is that notes from a test match?
Yeah, these guys, they're called on Instagram the sports commentators. Max and another guy set up a company and basically from all different sports, but they reached out to me and they've got one from the Six Nations 2023, Italy game actually. So yeah, pretty cool. It's nice to have something like that and a little memory for me. Obviously, something like that is pretty special to have and a nice little reminder of my England days.
And a nice little memory, I'm sure, from the weekend as well. How is the body? Because we're recording this on Monday. How's the body off the back of an absolute brutality session against Toulon? Are you feeling all right?
Yeah, shoulders are a bit sore, but I think the fact that we got the win, it makes it a little bit easier to hop out of bed this morning.
Tell us about the game. What is the French for squeaky bum time, out of interest?
I don't actually know the polite way of saying it, so probably not sure if we can say it on here. But oh mate, it was the closest game I remember playing for Toulouse. If I'm honest, like it was tense from the get go. Like, and fair play to Jaminet, he punished us for every penalty we gave away. I think there was one he slotted I got penalised on one that he slotted from about 56, 57 metres out, and it's like sticking it straight through the middle with a bit left in it. Fair play to him. It really was tight.
You've had some mega days, obviously, with Toulouse, but just talk us through these all French. I mean, the atmosphere looked absolutely sensational.
Yeah, honestly, mate, it was funny. We're getting off the bus and just getting like hissed and booed at, and as we're walking there, they've made this like loopy walk to go through as many fans as possible. And honestly, I think obviously like the idea is to like intimidate, but it just revs you up. You're like, this is wicked. This is such an occasion, and you've got like fans in your face, like saying in French, but like, we're the best here, we're better than you. Like, it almost is that not far off. It feels like they're about to spit in your face. It's like they really do hate you, and I think the passion that they show, it just makes you want to get out there, and also we had a lot of our fans there. Fair play to them, a big travelling support, and honestly the fans out here are incredible for our home fans, the away teams. It's you don't often go to a game and it's quiet, that's for sure.
Slightly different than when we set up at Wasp, those three brass band with the guy with the missing arm, like in the yellow big blaze.
Well, it removes the intensity from the occasion.
I mean, people get a trombone in the side of the head.
But Mary Poppins.
Just less
and
numbers.
Big guy with like a double bass. Dum 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 dum. Everyone was having a great time, like straw hats and shit. Like but what? It must be like super motivating. Do you? I mean, obviously, you've been part of Toulouse now for a while. Do you just fully embrace those moments? Do you feel kind of fully in the mix of those things? Do you understand the kind of passion? Because it unlike in the Premiership, I always find it was closer to football atmospheres, and it's so much more tribal over there than I think you get over here.
Yeah, they live and breathe it, don't they? They literally. There's times where like, it's funny in the warm up, Blair like kicked through in the warm up and like pretend to score, and he gave it like a little fake celebration. We're literally in the warm up, and there was people like almost throwing themselves over the barrier, like giving the fingers at him, swearing at him, hissing, booing. It was just like, and that was in the warm up. It was like that the whole game. The tension in it is amazing, and I think that's what makes it so special, and especially when it's a game that tight. Like any decision, even if it's clear as day, the refs getting booed and hissed at. Like, it is cool, and it definitely gives it that sort of football feeling.
Can I ask, did you ever feel like you were going to lose that game? Because I know, we've obviously played in sides together. You played in different moments. When you look at your pedigree and you look at the players you're playing with, was there any moment where you're like, oh, I think we might have just stuffed this? Or do you just have supreme belief that you guys are going to pull it out because of the talent around you?
Honestly, I think we did have that belief that we were gonna do it. I think it did feel like at times things were going a bit against us, whether that was decisions penalty wise, or a couple of the tries got disallowed, and it's like, it just takes a little bit of that steam out. But I don't think we ever let that stop us. I think we just cracked on and attacked it as hard as we could. And there's that belief within the group, and we talk a lot about the competition within the group as well. So you're not only trying to prove yourself individually, you're trying to prove yourself how you can work as part of the collective. And I think that fighting spirit amongst the group is key.
Can I ask you about Ugo Mola as well, who is obviously phenomenally successful in what he does? He's got great pedigree in the game, but we don't know a huge amount about him on this side of the channel. What sort of relationship have you got with him? What sort of a man is he in the change room pre and change room post?
Yeah, look, from my perspective, and in terms of motivation and man management, and getting people up for a game, he's the best, one of the best I've worked with. He's you can tell, even sometimes obviously the speed they talk, I'm trying my best to understand all of it, even the bits you can't understand. I think the passion, the body language, you just get a buzz, and there's always the sort of meeting we have before we head on the bus, there's just like a buzz, and I feel like he's someone who knows. He's got a real feeling for when to push people, when not to. Even if you don't necessarily feel like you want it, you're still sometimes getting that push, and it tends to be the right time, And there's been a couple of moments for me, like I had my tonsils out a little while ago, came back and played 2 weeks later.
That's how you got a contract extension.
I played a couple of weeks later. To be honest, I didn't play well. And he was at me. He was at me and at a meeting on the Monday morning throughout the whole week. And sometimes you want to be like, oh, come on, like, but nah, it was necessary. He's at you and he wants a reaction, and that's what you've got to try and give. And I always try my best to do my best no matter what it is. But sometimes people are getting those nudges. He's a very good man motivator.
Are you ever in the changing room when obviously the passions are running high? Do you ever realise that you've said we when you should have said no, or no when you should have said we? Like I obviously had moments staff and say you're in a huddle and they're all fired up and they say something really fast and you're like, I fucking have no idea what you just said, and you look at it and you go we, and you realise it definitely should have been a no, and you've sort of and then obviously and you're sort of like whispering under your armpit, what the fuck's he saying? Have you had those moments?
Oh mate, early on, like in all walks of life, to be honest, someone says something, you're like, you give it the old we, and they look at you and you go no, and then you go no. Peut-être, like maybe, I don't fucking know, mate. Yeah, it's like literally, whatever you think. But yeah, I've hopefully I'm a bit over that curve now, but especially early doors.
Touching on Ugo Mola, you were saying he spoke before you went to Toulon and before you left the hotel, and I love the fact that you said you didn't understand everything he was saying, but it was the passion that he was speaking with and the way he carried himself. Is he a shouter? Is he a screamer? Is he emotional? What sort of things was he saying in the hotel before that you could gather before you sort of went down to there? Because that's obviously probably one of my favourite French places to play would have been Toulon. That whole walk through and kind of the whole atmosphere in around the Stade Mayol is pretty special. What was he saying, or what could you garner?
Yeah, well, we did speak a lot about the atmosphere that was to come and how that could affect the game, and how also we can try and control that with our energy, and the momentum we create on the pitch can affect that in a positive way in our favour. But also a lot of it was around, in all honesty, that an average version of Toulouse today is not going to win. We're not going to beat Toulon if we're not at our best, And I still, to be honest, when you look back at it, I don't think we were at our very best. I think there's a lot we can improve. but there was elements of the game that we knew we had to be there on the day, because Toulon have been fantastic this season, but also in there they've been unbeaten there all year. And actually, we spoke a bit about the fact that, because a lot of the games we play when it's Toulon, it's at the Velodrome. So actually, the last time we'd won at the Stade Mayo was 20 years ago. So it was a big, it's a big stat that, to not win there for 20 years, they're unbeaten all year. In that, to go and do that, and it almost gives me a bit goosebumps now. Like that moment when Thomas put that through, and it was like everyone's leaning with the ball because it started going a bit left. It was like, come on, get through. And it's one of those things and he said before the game as well, you go and win there today, that's something you'll remember for the rest of your life. That's a memory you're going to make as a group for the rest of your life. And it really is. It's something that obviously it's quite fresh today, but what a moment. That's a big moment, and a big game.
Do you have any sort of in the town, any kind of discounts? You walk in there, you just flash the Toulouse badge, you get Cote de Boeuf or all those, any little link ups and stuff like that? You running a bit of Monopoly over like the mafia boss or not?
Oh, there's the odd bar and stuff like that will sort of
your money's no good here kind of vibes.
Like.
Yeah,
you want to make your way down to Trevor Brennan's, he'll charge you double.
We actually popped in there as a team last night when we got back just to have a drink together. Nothing. It wasn't anything crazy. Just to sit together, have a bit of food, and enjoy that moment. And actually, to be fair, watch the golf and. A fellow Irishman, Jordie, get the win. You must have been happy. But
I was up late last night watching it as well. I had my head in my hands. Yeah. I was going, oh no. I could. If he was nervous, I was bloody twice as nervous as him. So very special. Can I ask a really boring, nosy rugby question? Because I love the way Hask.
You've come to the right show, Jordan. You've made yourself at home.
Hask went straight into what discounts do you get, and I want to go. So I've been down to watch you guys play. And I just think it's just fascinating the way Toulouse play, the way the sort of the jeu de vie, the offload, keep it alive. But if there's one sort of rock that you build your game on, what is that? Is it because I think in order to do that, you have to be really physical. You have to win your collisions. You have to run really smart lines. But then it just seems to be that when it clicks and when the offloads come and the ball's going, you guys are just unstoppable. So what is it? Do you talk about winning the game line, or is it just guys just play what you see and have a crack?
The underlined thing for us is to play what you see and make sure you can play the ball at any time. And I think that's something that will always be in the blood of any Toulouse player. And that's certainly what they're trying to implement. Whether you've been in the academy since you're a young lad or whether you've come in and it's your first year, they're always trying to implement that mentality. But I think the fact is that you can't play that rugby unless you are dominant. If you're trying to offload when you're on your way back, it's not quite as effective. So I think it starts with doing the simple things really well, and that's always something we talk a lot about.
I want to ask, just obviously you got Bordeaux up in the semi-finals, first ever Champions Cup semi-final for Bordeaux. And we often talk about teams having to sort of earn their way into the latter stages, experience it in order to be able to go and win it type thing. Tell me about the matchup that you would expect at the Matmut Stadium. Toulouse, Bordeaux.
That's going to be a proper game. We had a proper game this weekend as well, to be fair. But that is, we obviously had the final against them last year. We've lost twice to them this year, and one of those away at the Matmut Stadium, incredible stadium as well, by the way. They've got again incredible supporters and an incredible team that is littered with sort of superstars in their backline specifically as well. I think for us, look, we've had a different route this year. I guess we could talk about it or not talk about it, but it's an interesting setup with the layout of the cup in terms of points and where you finish. But it's where we finished up. There's frustration in our group that we didn't max out the points, and we lost out on a bonus point away at Sharks that sort of ended up meaning us finishing fifth and not getting a home route in, which does make a difference. You talk about these away games, these away atmospheres, and that going in, it's a different route to what we had last year. But there's a belief and a motivation to go and do what we did last year, and that doesn't change it changes the route at which we come in, home game to a final to sort of away and away. It is different, but we've certainly we're motivated to try and take on that challenge.
I know you'll probably say that because you've got a star-studded team, but just how much is Dupont missed on those big occasions?
Oh look, I think any team in the world would miss a player like him. I don't think no matter how international, not international, like any team at club level as well is going to miss a player like him. But we've got a group of players and Paul and Nato who are coming in as well. We all need to step up. You're losing probably the best player in the world to a frustrating injury. It's going to be a tough long road for him, and he's going to come back and be an absolute beast. I went and popped to Sora for a coffee the other day, and I was like, knowing you, mate, you'll probably be fit by the end of the season. He's an absolute freak, isn't it? But he's going to work hard and he'll be focused to come back in next season and be ready, and I'm sure he'll come back and smash it. But for us, there's no job is done yet this year, and you're always, every season you're going to have injuries to key players, and that is rugby, that is sport, unfortunately. And I think we owe it to ourselves as a group to go and step up now. Every player around has to step up and see what they can do, see what we can do as a collective, and pull ourselves even closer together to see what we can do as a team, because it's not going to be one individually.
What does Antoine do with his time off? Is he bringing out a yellow dressing gown personalised range or action figures of Antoine Dupont 9, or is he just rehabbing?
Oh, look, I think he will be incredibly diligent with his rehab, like he is every other day of the week. And look, with injuries, and you guys will know this, like you need other focuses as well. You as much as you want to be diligent on your rehab mentally, if you don't have other things going on, you just want to give in. Like it's such a draining exercise. You want to come in, smash out, be focused for a few hours, and then go and take your mind off your rehab for the afternoon.
You came and visited me a couple of times. We went through some of your clips of your game. You came and sat out in the garden. I pepped you up. You realised that life couldn't be that bad, and you got back fast time, didn't you?
Are you now claiming Jack's glory at this point?
I just mean that we spoke, like when I knew, because it's not every day that you play one game, you find out your ankle was broken and they made him play on a broken ankle, and then he did his knee at the same time, so he was in a wheelchair with both legs up. So I was like,
two legs.
I was like, but obviously the kid that lived and breathed rugby, I was like, what else do you want to do? So we went through Cliff's game, but do bits and pieces. But it can be very lonely. But most people don't fuck themselves up double. But normally you're dealing with one injury.
Yeah, I was actually showing him the picture of that and saying, look, I was like sort of pushing myself along on my arse to like get into a shower and stuff. It was a low point, to be fair.
Like Lieutenant Dan from what is that? It's Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
Can I ask you? Obviously, you're now very much an Englishman embedded in France, but just catching up with old friends. Just a word on Dave Ribbons, who I thought was absolutely phenomenal for Toulon. Did you catch up with him afterwards? Carl Sinclair, etc., etc.
Yeah, and Luds as well. Yeah, it was nice to see those boys. Catch up with Bigger as well, because obviously he's finishing up at the end of the season, and congratulate him on what a career he's had. But those boys, look, there's a lot of good lads. Sinks always makes me laugh. It was funny actually. So I'm walking in, and there's obviously, like I said about they've made this little windy route, and I'm all serious, trying to be all game face, and I look up at one point, and his fucking Sinks on the edge of the balcony up the top, like looking down like this, and just seeing his face is like, just makes you giggle. I don't know why it made me giggle, but he started smiling at me, giving me one of these from the top. But it was nice to catch up with him after.
Obviously, Dave Ribbons has been captaining Toulon. You've had a couple of runs as skipper of Toulouse. Just tell me how that comes about. And it was interesting hearing you talk about Ugo occasionally giving you a bit. I'm not sure whether that's just because you're English, but I know you've said in the past, Hask, that you took more bullets as an Englishman in the French side than perhaps some of the French boys did. But what about the honour of captaining Toulouse? How does that come about, and how much pressure does that bring with it?
Honestly, it was I reckon it's one of the proudest things for me in my career to have been capped with the first time. It was a shock, I was like, he sort of said to me I think I went in, I was like, there's a list of, because the normal sort of game leaders, it was all the internationals. Like, honestly, it's crazy when you go into an international block at Toulouse. It's like all of a sudden, empty changing room. It's like a ghost town. It's like half the squad just disappears. And I was like, shall I come into the game leaders? And he went, well, yeah, you're going to be captain this week as well. So yeah, I'd like that. And I was like, oh God. I was like it did catch me off guard. And I was like, okay, right. okay, you've got to step up. And Hask will know this. I'm not someone. I'm probably half the time you need to shut me up instead of get me to talk. I think in French I was like, right, I need to be really clear on speaking. Well, trying to. My French isn't perfect, I tried my best. I've done a lot of lessons, but it really isn't perfect. And then that pressure of speaking in a group it's a different dynamic. So I was a lot of prep going into team talks and things like that, especially in the first few times I did it. And I'm hoping now I've sort of leaned towards being a bit more natural. There was probably one or two that I might as well have read it off a script, and I was like, I can't be doing that. I've got to be a bit more natural doing that way. And yeah, look, it's a challenge, but honestly, genuinely, it's something that I think one day I'll look back on and be like, what a cool thing to be. Yeah, I think I'm the first Englishman to captain Toulouse. It's something I am definitely very proud of, and it was a massive honour.
What's the expectation? So obviously, it's like if you lose half the side going away to play away in the top 14, and so you're missing half your team to international duties, what's Ugo saying to you in around that? Is it kind of put our best foot forward, or is it still an expectation of we must win?
Yeah, look, we went. So during that period, we had. I'm trying to think. So we had the first in the November. We had Bayonne away, and we could have won that. Last 10 minutes it went against us. But we won the other couple of games during that period, and then during the Six Nations we won every game, which was a big moment. And I think that expectation stays there. There's no change, and especially for the home games, there's no way we want to ease up. We lost at the beginning of this year to Bordeaux at home, and that was the first, I think, in 34 games before that we'd lost at home. We want to make hope being at the Ernest Well an absolute fortress, and that's something that whether the international's there or not, that doesn't change that mentality, and that's something I love about this place as well. That pressure's always there, no matter whether you're 18 or whether you've played 100, 200 games for the club. That expectation's there.
Is this your third season? You joined halfway through, didn't you? So it's your third season. So when you look back now at the player you were when you joined, relative to where you are now, where have you developed the most?
Good question. I think I would say, I'm being really honest, I think I struggled a lot mentally and wasn't in a great place in terms of my mental preparation before the World Cup and going into the World Cup, and how I came out of the World Cup experience. And I went away and have worked quite hard with a psychologist, Katie Mobed, who's been incredible, if I'm honest. I think working on dealing with different situations, working on myself, different things that whether that's overthinking, whether that's anxiety around things or what. There's been a lot of work that I put in off the back of that I feel like I've really been able to implement in my time at Toulouse, and just working out, why are you playing the game? Why are you doing this? What do you really enjoy about it? Why do you love it? And then going out there and doing the best you can with those things as that motivation. And I feel like that's been a big driver, definitely. And then if you're going more technical, I feel like something that I've had to step up is what I offer in attack, because I feel like being at a team like Toulouse, what are you known for? It's the attack, and it's the way you play, and I wanted to make sure that I've tried to develop my game in that aspect. That look, there's some boys in our team, I'm a million miles off the skills that they've got, but I'm still working hard to be in the best version of myself.
Coming good. It's the week of the sports psychologist as well, off the back of Rory McIlroy at the Masters.
But how funny is
Willis,
that you think at the top level of those games, how it for such a
you've
long
always been
period.
a massive advocate of
Well,
it.
I just think it's amazing, like as an afterthought, and you think how much work you had to put in, and how we pretend that we're absolutely fine, but it's such a mechanic. Like you'd eat well, you'd lift weights properly, you do your extra running, you do your extra tackling, but all of that's underpinned by how you view yourself, how you deal with stress, how you're prepared, how also you deal with the way other people speak to you, because for some people, a conversation that they don't even think about can break you, and it's a really interesting way of dealing with things. And then you throw in the mix now, everything's on social media and the media. It's such a powerful tool, and it's amazing how many players that had incredible careers but probably fell short because they never gave it the attention. And so it's great to hear that you're doing that. I absolutely love that.
I think it's really nice. Even your demeanour when you talk about your game, Jack, you talk about sort of in a different place where you were after that World Cup. You're not smiling, and then you start talking about attacking and playing and putting things behind you. A smile comes to your face, and you can almost sort of sense the palpable excitement of you want to be back on the field, you want to be playing. And look, for me, I think that's massively important. I don't know how long you've been working with Katie, but I think think that area of the game is hugely important. I think for all the old dogs out here, we also say it was kind of frowned upon at the start of your career of, you're not mentally tough enough. And for me, it's probably the biggest thing that I would take out of it.
It's like if you were mentally tough enough, you'd already be mentally tough enough. And so the answer is, if you don't have solutions to your problems, you go out and reach out. If your sink's leaking and you're not a plumber, you go and get a plumber. If you can't deal with criticism and you don't take things very well, if you could fix that, you already fixed it. So why don't you go to someone and find out what modality works? Like if every time you prepare for a game, you shit your pants, you're nervous. Yep. And you can't fix that, go and find someone else. And it's such a solution-based thing.
It's funny, isn't it? Because people look at it and you go, if your passing's rubbish, you go and work on your passing. You go and work with the skills coach. If you're not strong enough in the gym, you go and train in the gym. Why not? Your body could be in the best condition possible, like absolutely perfect, ready. But if your mind's not there, it's honestly like, and I think it's not only on the pitch, it affects you off the pitch. And I think that's where I got to, where just thinking about stuff all the time, and you're like, it's not a good place to be in. And I feel like I feel like I go out there and I'm happy on the pitch, I'm smiling on the pitch, I'm enjoying what I do, and I love what I do. And I feel like you obviously made the joke about signing out here till would you say 2,400 or something?
2,500. Whatever it is.
But look, I'm genuinely really happy here, and I am grateful for what Toulouse has done for me. I love what I do, and I go into work each day and enjoy myself, and that's a pretty cool thing to be able to say.
Do you ever thank Wass and the old owner for fucking the whole setup up and get you? Because let's be honest, let's be honest, you never would have left Wass, would you ever? Let's be honest, within reason. I don't think of those early days, because you were a player through and through for them, and then look at the chapter that out of basically the ashes of a complete shambles.
So often the way
you completely transformed everything you're about and your status.
No, I mean, with complete honesty, I would have never have left. I couldn't have seen myself leaving. I was playing with my brother, playing for my sort of academy club that I'd come through with, and I had aspirations, hopefully one day, of trying to be a big leader for the team, and I would have never have left. You're right. I wouldn't have ever taken that sort of risk to go abroad. And I remember when that all still came about, and I mean, when I said to Megan, my missus, I was like, Toulouse are interested. She's like, where's that? I'd never heard of them in the Premiership. I was like, they're in France. She was like, oh, okay. It's like, it was, And look, honestly, like the support I've had from her and my family to just be there every step of the way. It was tough at the beginning, you come in here and you're like, instead of, I don't know what, I had like such a barrier of like, I didn't want to speak English and I didn't really know much French. So I just ended up being this little mute. And then when we won the top 14 and I just went absolutely ballistic my first year and drinking, they were like, who's this kid? Where's he come from? Why is he? And I think, that was when I felt like I came out my shell a little bit, and at the end of that and trying to really kick on with my French. And since then, I feel like we've really settled.
It's amazing how
it's been great.
How many teammates you don't ever know. Like I remember when I lived in Japan, and we had this guy number 7, Riccio, who was like this crazy bloke. One of the most popular. He used to turn up to training in a suit. He'd come straight from the sales. Never said a boo to a goose. Post game, he was one of the only Japanese who drank. He drank that stuff called shochu, which is based like rice wine. It's like petrol. Nobody drank it unless you're completely like a lunatic. 4 of them cans. He'd be fucking trying to come over a fight. He'd be speaking fluent English, chatting, giving you shit.
Amazing.
But that's perfect, isn't it? Because you're nervous, and as soon because I've seen you on the piss as well, like when you just get real matey, real arm round, real chatty. They must have loved it. Like, what is this guy? Buongiorno. Is that Spanish? It doesn't matter. It's Italian. Who cares? Love it.
Yeah, it literally was, mate. But it's been a good bit of fun here, to be fair.
And it's certainly proving it on the field as well. A couple of quickies to finish with. So you mentioned your bro. How proud were you watching him in the Six Nations? How much does that remain an itch you'd love to be scratching, or are you at peace with the England thing at the moment?
Well, that again, a good question. Look, I was so proud of him seeing him out there, and he deserves to be there. I feel like he's been the best. Well, honestly, like one of the best players in the Premiership this season. He's beating about 10 defenders a game. I keep taking the piss out of him. Like, I don't know how many. I don't know how are you managing? He can't be hitting rucks, can he? That's what I was saying to him. But he's honestly, you look at all his stats. He's like hits fucking 20 rucks a game, 20 carries a game, 20 tackles a game every week. And I'm like, you know what, mate? Like, you deserve to be in that spot, and he's really earned it. And truly proud of him. I think I'd be lying if I didn't say it's hard. You know, I'd always. The thing is, I could be back there and be eligible, but it doesn't mean I'm getting picked. And you've got to work into an incredibly competitive back row. But that has always been a dream to play with my brother, whether that's for club or international. And that's something that will always be hard. But you've got to be at peace with the decision you've made. But he fundamentally deserves to be there, and I'm very, very, very proud of him.
I was going to ask, because your dad might be the biggest nose in world rugby, because he literally, I love him, because he's obviously the spit of you two. He absolutely loves it. But how do they split the time between the two of you? Because they've got two kids, both absolutely killing it. You know, what days was easy. He was always be in the stand. You'd be able to tell him because he's got the same hairline.
He'd be with that band with the trumpet, with the straw hat.
He was playing the snare drum. But how does he balance it out?
Yeah, I think. The guys get out here as much as they can. Mum and dad get out here to try and watch the games, and they've been brilliant in terms of the support. But you can't be out here every week. You know, they don't live too far away from Surrey, so they obviously get to more games. But he'll be watching my games back 10 times on Canal Plus.
Oh, really?
He's got my login on that, and he's watching it 400 times. Yeah, he's watched the game 4 times before I've even watched it back once. You know, he's like with his notes and telling me how many tackles and stuff.
I wondered because obviously he's very proud. I just wondered whether he does he share like work on? Are you happy with that? Because I used to, if I wanted to hear that I was a good player, my mum would tell me, I'd be like, Mum, I missed 8 tackles and got fucking sent off. Mum would be like, but I love you and you're great. My dad, even if I had a great game, was like, oh, you missed a couple of tackles, you were shit. So I wondered actually, well, does he have the balance right? Or sometimes you're like, Dad, come on, take your foot off the gas. Or what kind of parent is he?
I feel like it's a good balance. It's a good balance, you know, and I feel like you also know as a player if you come off, if you're happy or not happy. And then also, you know, when you speak to your brother and your dad, you get the vibe from them as well. And I think we always bounce off each other a little bit, how we feel we've played. And I think if we feel like we've played well, they're there to, especially my brother, we're there to bring each other back down a little bit. But it's a good balance, and I think it's something that has always helped. The days of running into each other, kicking a high ball in the middle of running into each other, see who's gonna win it, feels like a long time ago now. That's for sure.
I think I knew I played well because my dad used to answer the phone. That was. Yeah. I used to have food.
It's not like that. It's not like that. Yeah.
A couple of quick ones to finish with. Whose French is better, yours or Megan's?
I'd have to say mine. Yeah.
Okay.
I think I'm fortunate. You know, I get to go in and practice it in a lot more scenarios, and especially we're talking about, Jordie's asking about meetings and things like that. I get a lot more opportunity to practice it. But she's been hammering away at lessons, and yeah, she's much better than she says she is. You know, she's pretty impressive.
Whose French is better, yours or Blair Kinghorn's?
I've got an extra year on him, so I think I'm slightly ahead. But to be fair to Blair, he has absolutely smashed out lessons as well, he's done really well. And I think buying into that culture, the French boys really respect that as well. And yeah, fair play to him, he's done well.
Okay, next question: have you had your Lions picture done as one of the potential 70s?
No.
You're telling the truth?
I don't know how the sort of system works or anything, but for me, I genuinely, there's so many fantastic back rowers out there that deserve to be picked. I don't honestly, who knows whether you're in the mix or not. I just go out there and I'm trying to be the best version of myself for Toulouse, and that's honestly my focus. I don't think you could look at anything externally to that.
So Jack, just on that, I know that's the political line and that's fantastic. There's great players, but would you pick yourself for the Lions if you could?
I don't know what sort of question that is, Jordie, if I'm honest, mate.
It's called checkmate, Jack. It's what it's called.
So this is the question. I'll rephrase it. So you're picking the Lions squad. Are you in it?
I think that's the same question. If I had my lawyer next to me, I think he'd tell me to say no comment, wouldn't he? So, Look.
What I'm saying is there's fantastic back rowers. You're looking at the Currys, you're looking at Van der Fleer, you're looking at Darge, you're looking at some great back rowers in that squad. You can play in a couple of different positions in the back row. I think, we talked about your love of rugby and the smile on your face when you talk about your Toulouse rugby, and I think the Lions need to play like that this summer. You've not obviously had your headshot taken in a shirt, but
AI these days can do that in a heartbeat.
Heartbeat. I don't know if they'll get anyone with shoulders like him. That's the only problem.
True.
But I just think obviously you'd love to go.
Yeah, look, I think you'd be lying as any player. Any British player would love to go on the Lions tour. Hask obviously been there and done it. It's a dream for every player. There's nothing that I can control other than what I go out, what the work I put in during the week and the work I do at the weekend is what I can control. I can't think or do anything other than that. That's sort of all I can say on it, really. I think it's a dream to play for Toulouse, it's a dream to play for your country, and it's a dream to play for Lions, and it's sort of the pinnacle for any British player. Every player that would be lying if you said you didn't want to go on it, but there's so many great players out there that are playing so well internationally and for club. And
we're just going to edit that bit off. We're just going to edit all the extra crap you just put on the end of that question. We're just going to say, I'd love to go to the Lions store. Cut. And then
please don't do that, or I will never come on this podcast again. You'll never see me again. I'll be blocking Hask on WhatsApp. Yeah.
Logistically, I know Lee Halfpenny had a release clause in, I think it was 2017, to go from Toulon or Leicester. Do you have that in your contract or not? No.
I don't know any of those sorts of bits and bobs. And
get the old printer out behind you. You'll be right.
Say, fire that bad boy up again
to zero.
Print it out.
You lot have gone full journalist, mate. I love it. It's like, what has happened? I feel like I'm in a press conference. Thanks, Dan.
I just like the way you went full defensive. Look, there's fantastic. There's a lot of fantastic back rowers out there, and I don't know. I just love to control what I can control.
The point is, Jackie, if you weren't in the equation, we wouldn't be asking the question. So it's a credit to you and the way that you're playing and the noise that surrounds every time you run out onto the field for Toulouse that you are in the equation, whether you like it or not. It's just interesting to ask you whether logistically or whether it's something that has sort of come across your radar right now. You want to ask one more?
Yeah, this is going to be a bit bizarre. Obviously, I know you're a very proud Englishman. Obviously, you've signed until 2029, whatever it is. That's right. Would you ever consider playing for France?
You've got to have ancestry in France, though, in order to be able to change your allegiance. You can't just change because you want to.
Your dad, you got a grandma in France somewhere? We can find somewhere.
Mademoiselle Willis.
Yeah, look, I think I'm quarter Irish, but I don't think it's something that like it.
So you're saying there's a chance?
No, look, the England thing. I think I had to make peace with my decision. You make decisions in life. You've got to live with it. I'd always want to be. I always want to play for England, but there's lots of factors in stuff like this. You can't. It's not as simple as just one thing or another, and that is what it is.
Good. Yeah. I can see we're sort of running. You're running out of the appeal of answering these ridiculous questions. You've done very well under rapid fire. Well done, Jack. Your media training remains strong in English. I hope it stacks up well in French as well. Hopes for the end of the season. Just as sort of where you think you sit right now relative to what you were aiming at coming into this campaign. You got all the tools you need right now?
Yeah, look, I think last year the memories we made as a group going and doing the double was just the best feeling and memories I'll have for life. They're absolutely incredible. That only makes you want to do it again even more. Genuinely, you think it's certainly not a case, you've done it and let's happy days, that's me, I'm happy. It's the opposite. It's like, oh my God, how good was that? How bad? How can we do that again? How can we find a way to do that again? As I already spoke, it's sort of a slightly different route European wise. Having to go away again in a semi-final is going to be a big challenge. And then for us in the top 14, there's still a long way to go to try and secure those sort of top two spots where it means you go straight to the semi-final. That makes a real difference. It means you get a week of rest leading up to the semi-final, whilst the others play the quarters, and that sort of focuses for now. We can only take it each game as it comes. It's Bordeaux next in the European Cup, and we've got Stade Francais this week, and that's got to be the focus week to week. It's so competitive in both competitions, and we have to be at our very best this year if we want to come close to what we did last year.
Jack, thank you so much for joining. Very nice to see you. Enjoy all that's to come throughout the rest of the campaign. And we may yet see you down in Australia in the summer, but we'll let others be the judge of that. I know you'll just play the flat bat and leave it there for now. Top man, as always, thanks so much for dialing in, Jack. Good to see you.
Thank you, Jack.
Cheers, Jack.
Thank you very much, guys.
Shall we, just before we finish up, dive into the rich history of the Investec Champions Cup? Because, chaps, we've got 3 incredible centre partnerships for you to choose from. Your mission: decide which duo deserves the crown of the greatest of all time. But there's a twist. Each club can only be represented once. We've already got Toulouse, Munster and Wasps partnerships in the team. For example, you therefore cannot pick Yannick Josian or Florian Fritz. But here are some other great combinations. I think I'm right in saying they all won it. Yes, they did. Option 1. 2 men you know well, Gordon Darcy and Brian O'Driscoll. Won it 3 times as a centre pairing, 09, 11 and 12. You'd have played with them obviously in Irish colours. Give us a little sense of what it was like to play outside those two.
Yeah, cracking centre pairing, and obviously they did it for a very long time for Leinster and for Ireland together. Drico, probably one of the best players ever to play in the game in that 13 slot. He was just pure class. Sort of changed the way he played as you know, kind of as he got on as well. And Darce facilitated a huge amount of that. You know, did a lot of the unseen work, defensively really, really solid. Sort of tackling on both shoulders on occasions and sort of, you know, really plugging those holes. And you know, could really play as well. Darce came through. Actually, both guys were sort of similar school year to myself. Darce was a fullback, went straight out of school into the Irish team as a fullback.
Wow.
And was, you know, just known as his running ability. You know, kind of really balanced runner, sort of looked a lot like a Christian Cullen type of player, and sort of as a back 3 player was kind of his forte, but sort of naturally, sort of due to his kicking game, moved up into the midfield and just they were particularly tough team pairing to play against. Sometimes tough to play with as well, in fairness, but because they were just so good. You know, O'Driscoll could do whatever he wanted to do, and it was very difficult to run strike lines off a 13 like him who can sort of beat 4, 5, 6 players on his own. So and Darce again was had that ability.
Solid dummy line.
Because you're like,
they didn't want to pass me. Basically.
Yeah, it'd be like you're trying to catch up and you're like, you've overrun them, or crap, they've beaten someone, and then very difficult to read them.
I just like the 13 who ran into someone and gave me.
That's what I mean. You knew it was coming off, like, because they beat someone, you're like, oh shit, and they beat someone again, shit, and then you have to clear the ruck because you got so close to them. I know what you mean.
Option 2, the Glasgow's Gitto and Bastereau, 2013 and 14, they went back-to-back as winners. Both started in 2015 as well, but Gitto was at fly half following Wilco's retirement. Would you have come up against Toulon in their pomp? Yes, you would have done.
Yes, I would have done, yes.
What do you remember of the Gitto-Bastereau?
That partnership was just next level, different levels of physicality. You know, Bastereau always giving you, you know, especially the space and time that Johnny and Gitto would create on the ball, he would always be getting over the gain line. So I think they're pretty impressive, really.
Option 3, Pat Howard and Leon Lloyd. 2001. Pat was one of those players who was instrumental, not just in the success of Leicester, but in actually a lot of the Premiership rugby at that time, wasn't he? Is that too big or not?
No, not at all. I think he was definitely, and still is, a rugby brain. You know, he signed for Leicester out of Australia. He'd had about 15, 20 caps, and probably was never going to play behind Horan and Little, and was kind of one of these guys who sort of Leicester did a really good job of picking him up cheap. A guy who was kind of in around it, but you know, his mother was just an absolute rugby brain. His father had coached Australia. They reckon she was smarter than him.
Wow.
Really, really great. And it was fantastic. You know, he took us to the next level of strike plays and the way we were sort of doing. So 01, I think he was a fantastic player to play with as a communicator and seeing things, you know, as a young player, for him to be able to sort of call things out 3, 4, 5 phases down the line was really exceptional. You know, he'd be looking at plays, and even as the play was going on and somebody be carrying the ball around the corner, he'd be looking back or shouting to you, Jordie, we're going to go down the phase, 2 phases time, we're going to go down and pick on that guy who's just made that tackle. So, you know, you'd be waiting for another phase to go around the corner or another phase, and you'd be eyeing up exactly who you were going back to challenge with overs, because, you know, they've just made a big tackle and they were slow off the ground. So he was an unbelievable communicator, and Leon Lloyd was a great player, good mate of mine.
Yeah,
I have to give him a big shout out. I think if it was if we were on a salary cap, we had to save a few quid. Then definitely Howard and Lloyd, because they were probably paid peanuts. I'd say they were paid. They're definitely the cheapest. And look, they're European Cup winners, so and great clubmen as well. Like Leon scored that try.
Such a good boy,
Leon's a class act. Scored that try or those couple of tries in the European final in 01, which won it for us, and somehow didn't get man of the match because Austin talked himself into it. So Leon's a great bloke. So look, is in again another fantastic centre pairing. And I think playing together they kind of was a lovely foil. Pat was a real ball playing 12 who put people through holes and talked really well, and Leon was very happy to run really hard lines off of him, scored some great tries on that sort of second man hit play with the 10 running around the back of it, and they scored. So three good options. I know if we were on a budget that'd probably be they'd be the pair, but
I'm going to open up the checkbook.
Checkbook's opened up. Well, in that case for me, I think it has to be Darcy and O'Driscoll, and again it's relative to what you've got in other positions and where you're at. If you wanted to have a look at sort of Leinster front rows from the last couple of years, because I think that would be unbeatable if you're talking about sort of Porter, Sheehan, Furlong as a Leinster front row. So if we were going to go there and keep that space available, you might go with a Giteau and Bastereau. But if you want to just give me,
we're living in the moment. We're living in the moment.
Live in the moment.
Don't think about tomorrow.
Don't give me the context, and let's not try and make it as good as it can be.
We don't try to ever do that here
because we've already got a debatable back three. Cheers, Payno. But I'll go O'Driscoll and Darcy.
Big fan of the show, though.
Yeah,
that's one bit I'm taking from this. Keno, love it.
Loves it. Welcome anytime.
I'm all over it.
I'm trying to think if there's anyone that we'd left out. Guscott to Glanville of Bath in '98. Alan Bateman. Trying to think. Barrett, Duncan Taylor, Barrett, Marcelo Bosch, Barrett, Lazowski for Sarries. They went 3 and 4, didn't they?
Nice, yeah.
I think it's hard to argue with Darcy O'Driscoll.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll lock them in. Well done to them. They fit in with the rest of the back line, obviously, that has got some pretty stellar names in it already. We've still got a couple of clubs that we haven't used. Sarries, Leicester, bit of Bath. But well done to Darcy and O'Driscoll, who join our Munster back row of Leamy, Wallace and Foley, Toulouse halfbacks of Dupont and Intermac, and the Wasps back three of Voice, Lucy, Van Gisbergen.
Quality.
In our Investec Champions Cup Partnerships 15. Why aren't you happy with our Wasps back three? Because you're left out.
Yeah, because you're left out.
No.
Concrete boots, no lid.
Toulouse. What was that? Toulouse back at Toulouse with
Haymans, Clerk, and who would have played?
Oh,
and Poitras.
Those three average players.
He's such a bitch, isn't he?
I like that though. I like the bitch factor going up.
Excellent players.
Everybody goes, he was a great teammate. Oh, he couldn't run, concrete in his boots. He was another guy, talked himself up. He was shit. He was cheap, but I mean,
that's right, Jordan. You're welcome. Anyway, you bring your scalpels.
Square wheels.
Prem Rugby is back this week as well. Bath going great guns in the Challenge Cup. Well done to them for their win over Gloucester. The treble is still on, having already captured the Prem Cup. Challenge Cup and Premiership up for grabs for Johan van Graan. Tigers head coach, do you want to have a word on that? Who would you go for? Have you polished your CV?
Another go?
Never go back? We'll go back.
No chance. No, look, it's quite scary, really.
Right.
Who would I go for?
Who would you go for?
If there was no checkbook, I'd have someone like Wayne Smith. It'd be nice, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
If you could get someone like that, I think you need to go big. I think
Burn Cotter, someone like that.
I think it's they're in a rebuild phase for me. They need to get a coach in, and whatever coach they go for, they need to just appreciate that it's probably going to take him a couple of years to get his slant on the team. It's not ideal. Where they're at the minute. I think it's a bit shambolic with kind of who they've kind of tried to get and couldn't get, and I think Graham Rowntree would probably be a really good option for me in that I know he's available and I know he's very passionate and he'd do a good job, but I do think that it's going to take a couple of years. I think sort of Leicester fans need to be kind of very much aware that it won't be a straight fix. It's going to have to take a couple of years of a rebuild and need to put some money back into that academy and bring some more young guys through.
Patience pleaded. And if you're looking for another 10, Pollard is off.
Pollard's gone. Again, I think they've been looking for 10s around the world. The latest kind of, again, I probably no less than you, but
that really would take some doing. That really would.
Sorry, less than you, Payno. Not you.
Okay.
Look, Finn Smith for me is probably the best 10 in England, but obviously he's under contract, and I know that could be a marquee spot in a year's time. So I think that'd be a nice one. That'd be a nice one to go after for a year's time, and then you again in that next period. There's some great 10s who are available on short-term contracts. Somebody who's maybe a little bit older, an aging 10, and just to fill the boots for a year or two.
Okay, watch this space. Hask, a little read for you and I for Watches of Bath, because as you can imagine, we often do, and without a little bit of timekeeping, we never stop rambling on and on. Our team always call time on us every week, but that is about to change thanks to our new partners at Watches of Bath. Whether you're looking to purchase, part exchange or sell your timepiece, Watches of Bath has got you covered, Hask.
And it is with thanks to Watches of Bath that every month we'll be putting one lucky grassroots player to the test alongside the boys, all in the name of winning a cash prize of up to £5,000, helping to take their club to the next level or have the social of a decade.
The contestant and their glamorous assistant will need to identify up to 6 mystery rugby players based solely on the clubs that they have represented in their career. So if you think you have what it takes, please head to the link in the episode description box, fill in the entry form with your club's name and your details for your chance to win.
All entries have to be UK based and it has to be money used for the club, not personal use. Remember, Watches of Bath is for all rugby fans. Head to wobgroup.co.uk for more information.
Super stuff. We've given out quite a lot of cash. Another
We have.
£5,000 last week, wasn't it?
Money. Not out of my pocket though, because
No, very true.
Get that. You get like a Mars bar and a cup of tea in the face.
I'm amazed you've done that
I
much
haven't given that
generosity.
out either. I haven't given
that's
that
true.
out. I was lying.
Okay.
I was making it up.
For extra content, don't forget to subscribe to the lock-in. £3.99 per month, and a steal at that. Bottle of black eye for Jordan, please.
Yes.
Have you got a couple of these already?
Gin
You
does
drink
not last.
gin, or not?
Yes,
Oh,
I
good,
love gin.
good.
Yeah.
You are
Gin
very
does not
welcome.
last in our house. Thank you very much.
Jordie, you're a
It's gone
fantastic
before I
guest.
get back home.
You're very welcome.
Adding some sophistication, some knowledge, some depth, and some difficult questions.
And a
for us,
small amount of bitchiness as well.
And a
which
small
is
amount of
just a
bitchiness.
little, just a little tart on the tongue.
Yeah, a little position hating, fellow teammate knifing, old
we need.
Geordie Murphy.
That's what we want.
But listeners, you know, £1.50 of every bottle sold goes to the Black Eye Players Fund to help men and women across the rugby landscape. We're in Waitrose, Waitrose Cellar. We're on Amazon.
Master of Malt.
Master of Malt. It's unbelievable. It's just won double gold in San Francisco. 95 out of 100. It is the prestige of all gins. So you need to check it out, Geordie. Drink it. Let us know. Review it, and come back on and we'll give you another one.
Summer is coming. If you haven't got your gin in the cupboard, now is the time to buy and help the cause as you go. This Father's Day, Sunday the 15th of June, give your dad a gift he will never ever forget. Good Bad Rugby is live at Hampton Court Festival. Get your tickets now at hamptoncourtpalacefestival.com. How was the shoot?
Oh, the shoot was fantastic. I've done a little promo video. It's coming out soon. I'm dressed as Henry VIII. What could possibly go wrong? I'm not sure who... I don't think I've offended anyone. It's not that easy to do these days, but I don't know if there's any sort of...
I'm sure you'll have
I've offended
a
someone.
I don't think I've offended someone.
Probably. But I can live with that. A reminder that you can now watch the full podcast on Spotify as well as on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and follow us on social media for the latest rugby updates.
If we've particularly upset you or there's something that we've left out that you'd like to remind us of, do get in contact with us using the email info@goodbadrugby.com. Thank you, as always, to our sponsors, Continental Tyres, the official tyre partner to England Rugby. Remember, if you are looking for an award-winning tyre that can keep up with your every move, look no further than Continental Tyres. Jordan, great to see you. Thank you for coming in. Welcome anytime. We'll catch up again soon. We're a Folding Pocket Productions. Stats and facts provided by Oval Insight. This episode was produced by Tom Edwards. Have a very good rest of your week. We'll see you soon. Bye for now.
You've been listening to The Good, Yay, The Bad, and The Rugby, Oof, with Alex Payne, James Haskell, and Mike Tyndall. Thanks for listening.
Like that lid, mate, with it's making a
My lid's
comeback.
coming back just because you've got Jack's the only person with a preceding hairline, so by the time he's 40 it'll be over his fucking mouth.
Yeah,
I've
but
never seen it
how jealous... The only thing is how jealous are you of that? That's all I'm
It
saying.
looks like a crash helmet. It looks like it's poured in. Your hair wouldn't move in a tornado. But
Don't start going on the attack, mate.
I've got a new lid.
Don't start, mate.
Listen, let's go back.
I
Do you
think
wanna go on the
make sure you
fucking
keep the
lines?
fans...
Do you want to go on the lines?
Yeah.
Answer the question. Do you wanna-
Just keep those fans down in the office. It might blow off, mate.
I can't buy a convertible anymore because it'll end up in the back seat.